I don't know kung you had a chance to I don't know if you had a chance to look at the YouTube of the kasi kuwan rin sila, eh, ang tawag nito online. Real-time online din sila, eh.
Alright.
Oo, sa Malaysia. Pero siyempre makinig ka dun, hindi mo unless you know how to speak Malaysian, but you could sense that they are fighting talagang yung
Nagpa-panic sila, panicky.
ang nangyayari ngayon nito, yung mga representative kasi parang yung parliament nila, yung parang congress natin, yung representative ng Sabah in that body was seemingly was questioning, no? Yun ang sense ko because I also listen to the English news. May mga news
Mhm.
media rin sila doon.
Oo.
Na sinasabi yung taga mga representative ng Sabah, bakit hindi nyo pinaalam? We are surprised by this happening. Why did you not inform us? Sabi, this was filed early this year and then and a decision was made February. How come you only acted July 5? Parang July 15 lang sila nag-counter, which is the application with the arbitration court to stay the execution. No? To stay the execution of the decision of the arbiter. So sabi nila, bakit ngayon lang? Why did it take you mga 5 months yan, February to July? Why did it take you 5 months to take action? That's first one. Pangalawa, how come we did not know? Yun ang sabi ng doon ng Congress. How come you never informed us? You've never briefed us on this situation about Sabah. In fact, we are surprised that you have been paying rental. Okay. So, lumalabas na yung representative ng Sabah, sila mismo within their own government, within the legislative body, hindi nila alam. And then, ito nga, ang decision is, sabi nga yung nag-a-analyze ngayon ng yung decision, this confirms basically that they did not cede the territory, Sabah, that the owner is the Sultanate of Sulu. They did not cede it to the British or to Malaysia. Yun ang point, ha? They did not cede it with that agreement to the British, and subsequently the British gave the territory to Malaysia. And Malaysia continued paying the rental. So, dalawang aspeto yan sa pag-rent. So, the fact that they were renting and they were actually paying is proof that this was not a cessation. Of course, Malaysia is saying that is a cessationist. Ang sabi nila, parang installment ng payment of Sultanate of Sulu, ceding the territory to Malaysia. Now, yung kwentada na 14.9 billion or almost 15 billion dollars, that's for the extraction of all they have been taking advantage of the renting of the place. Para bang mag-rent ka ng bahay ko pero walang subletting, ha. Tapos naman mo, sinublet pala. So, you're supposed to, yung bayad ng sublet na yan, that should go to you, not somebody. So, para bang ganun.
One who owns the oil, one who owns the land, owns the gold, or owns the oil, owns the natural resources, etc.
May mga meron namang mga lawyers yan who would say that ownership is 90% possession. And ano ba yan? Land ownership is 90% possession. In other words, kung ikaw humahawak ng teritoryo, you have a bigger chance of being considered owner of the land. Okay, but you have to take into consideration that the history of this land was not occupied. This was an occupation, but rather a rent. In other words, there was a transaction between two parties. Between the North Borneo, the British North Borneo Trading Company, and the Sultanate of Sulu. So this was a purely rental matter. It's a business transaction. Now, whether that business, whether the North Borneo, the British North Borneo business has the authority to transfer this property to another, to Malaysia, which is another entity, if they have the right to do it. Remember, ito yung problema minsan sa mga stall sa palengke, di ba? Sino
Mm.
yung nakahawak na ng stall diyan, kahit na hindi sa kaya siya ang may-ari, binebenta niya yan, parang
Yeah.
sabi, rights. You don't have any right to that.
Ah,
Oh, di ba? Parang
mm.
ganun. So, with that situation ngayon, yun ang malaki. The decision, ito na lang. I mean, I'm not going into the technical, hindi ba tayo mga lawyers? SSU man tayo.
Namimiss ko
Yun,
na yung SSU.
the point is, the decision has now opened the gate for the claim. It's favorable to the claim of the Sultanate of Sulu.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
At saka parang
Sila,
nagkaroon na ng
natutulog
outright.
sa manok.
Yung
Sa
bang
kon.
sinabi nila na nagbabayad sila ng rental, there is already an outright admission na hindi sila may-ari. Kasi kung sila may magbabayad ng renta. Di ba?
The point they're saying now, yung narinig ko sa Malaysian TV and news, sabi nila, it's a payment. They call it the cessation payment. The Sultanate of Sulu has agreed to cede the land to Malaysia, and they are now paying on a monthly basis. Pero I find it very irrational, stupid, and unjustified to pay only around 70,000 pesos. That's around
$5,000 a
ringgit.
year, A year.
Oh, ringgits yun, ringgits. That's equivalent to around 60,000 pesos. Convert mo yung ngayon. Pero I mean, who would for that size of land, for that,
Oo.
sa ganun kalaking lupa na yan, who in the sound mind will accept a payment of only 60,000 pesos for as rent when it is making, remember, the contribution of North Borneo or Sabah to the GDP of Malaysia is around 20 to 23% of
My
the GDP.
goodness.
Oh. And Malaysia has been considered one of the growing, di ba? Growing developing country. So, yun ang naggugulo sila ngayon because the same, the uncovering, the exposure to the light of what is happening.
Ayun.
Oh,
Ayun.
yun.
Ibig sabihin, hindi tinago ng Malaysian talagang tunay na status ng Sabah mismo dun sa mga Sabah legislators. Kaya hindi,
Yes. Yung parang yun ang understanding ko, yes. Oh.
ultimo sila, hindi nila alam.
Hindi nila alam. In fact, they were only briefed by the central government the other day. So after that rocos during the week in their parliament, it was only the other day or 2 days ago, I don't know, no? Na they were given an orientation. Kaya lumabas sila, after that orientation, they were saying, we did not know anything about that.
My goodness.
So ngayon, labasan na. So the light is now exposing the darkness.
Ang inaantay ko na lang, Ed, na kung ganyang sitwasyon din, dahil nga pre-colonial o yung during the colonial stages yung na-consummate, ano naman kaya yung tinatawag na Treaty of Paris na dito naman sa boundaries ng mga Spanish-controlled territory dito sa Pilipinas na maaari naman nating ganito ring proseso, no? Parang similar process na pwede naman din natin i-contest na hindi valid yan dahil ang kontrata hindi naman sa Philippine government kundi doon sa gobyerno ng Espanyol o gobyerno ng Amerikano. Sa tingin mo, may possibility na magkaganon din following the same path?
Ito ngayon, I mean, from looking at it from a historical viewpoint, we were colonized by Spain by around the end of the 1500s, di ba? 1580. Yan. Colonized na tayo. Nandito na sila Legazpi, ganun. And they put administrators, mga governor general, etc. So, by the time that the Sultanate of Sulu was negotiating with the North Borneo, the British North Borneo Trading Company, the Philippines was already existing under the Philippines under the Spanish government
Mm.
as a colony of Spain, 'di ba? So as a colony of Spain, meron na tayong ah, territorial integrity. Meron na tayong recognition as a territory of Spain. Malaysia was not existent by the time at that time. Malaysia was just a group of villages, a group of islands, or etc. Because Malaysia only became Malaysia in 1963, di ba?
Mm.
Okay.
Okay, sige,
Now,
tuloy mo.
uh, when the Americans came and defeated the Spaniard or nagmuro-muro sila lumalabas na natalo ang
Ah,
Spaniard. In the Treaty of Paris, if you have a chance to look at the Treaty of Paris, there are two documents, one in the Paris itself, the other one was the amendment or addendum to the Treaty of Paris, specifically identifying the territorial boundaries of the Philippine colony of Spain. So
okay.
pag take over sa Amerika, alam nila kung anong boundary. And if I'm not mistaken, that the boundary include Sabah, the North Sabah, North
Uy.
Borneo.
Okay.
Mhm. So, even at the time of the Treaty of Paris, Sabah was already part now. I don't know kung si Doc Harry will agree with me or he will come up with a new information na nasa kanya.
Ng 1935 Constitution, pagpalagay na natin, hindi nakasama yun sa Sabah.
Oh, if you look at the 1935 Constitution, I think we were, ang reference natin is the Treaty of Paris eh.
Ah, right. Mm.
So if the Treaty of Paris includes the addendum of the territory, then the 1935 Constitution include
Masama.
Sabah. And even in the
73.
1973 Constitution, there was still, I'm not an expert, pero there was still a reference to Sabah as part of it. In fact, Marcos was very, no, di ba?
Siguro hindi nga niya gagawin yung jabida na yan, yung
Oh.
hindi niya
Actually, I have personal stories of
kung wala siyang basihan. May basihan siya.
I have cousins who are member of the military no at that time, who were being trained special ops with intent merong
Pero,
operation. So anyway, the point is historically we have a claim. We have a claim na hindi lang in terms of maps but the actual delineation of the territorial boundaries of the Philippines, which included Sabah. If I remember if I'm not mistaken in my recollection, the old maps showing the Philippines includes Sabah sa dulo in Philippines. As part of the Philippines.
Kaya raw binura o nabura ang Sabah noong pumalit na si Cory.
Sorry. Now, bakit gano'n? Okay, ito kwento na naman to. Kwento ko cherry to, chismis. Chismis to. I was born in I was 22 years old when martial law was declared. I was 36 when Cory took over. So, yan ang age bracket. Handa na tayo. But I remember na a story going around that the late Benigno Aquino was working out with Malaysia. With Malaysia.
Parang may
ganun lang yun. Sabi ko, I have no proof.
May ng pera yan.
Mali yun. Baka sira ulo lang ako. My mind might be yan. Pero meron akong na-recall na ito si Kan. And then, remember, karamihan sa mga pareho niyang yung nangyari sa Liberal Party sa Plaza Miranda, pinapalabas na si Marcos pero it turned out pala na NPA ang nag-operate doon. tapon ng granada, which was confirmed by Jovito Salonga,
Salonga.
one of the victims. And the funny thing was that Benigno was supposed to be there, but instead of
Wala.
being there, which was the meeting in the Avance, doon siya sa kabilang street na nag-attend sa restaurant kasi party daw. Ayan,
Nasa
I don't know, but
I don't-
probably.
Okay. Tapos involved sa Jabida. Mga gano'n,
Eh,
ano?
yung kwento, ganito kasing nangyari dyan ito kwento na naman to, kwento katsero, what I can recall sa story nung mga panahon na yun. At saka I confirmed it talaga because when I was working with the first job that I had, which involved the organization of electric cooperatives, nakapunta ako sa Zamboanga. And yung mga balikbayan, ang tawag ng mga returnees ng MNLF, yung mga MILF who went back to the government, ang tawag sa kanila balikbayan.
Mm.
Okay. So when I went there, ang story ganito. At the height of the fight of the MILF versus the Philippine government, they were being armed by Gaddafi, or they got some financing from abroad, and the firearms were being smuggled through Malaysia via North Borneo. Yun ang kwento dyan. Na-confirm ko yan because when I went to Alicia at the time, which was isolated, surrounded by MILF rebels, pero pumasok ako doon to set up the electric cooperative, which was the promise of Ferdinand Marcos to Saliwali. Saliwali was the regional commander of the MILF at that time, and who surrendered to Marcos with that RPG. Kung yun may lumabas siya sa newspaper. Ewan ko, hindi, bata ka pa noon.
Bata pa ako, 10 taon pa lang ako noon sa Daily
So,
Express.
one of the promise of Ferdinand Marcos to Saliwali was for the electrification of Alicia, the municipality of Alicia, which at the time of my going, when I went there in the mid-70s, was still surrounded by the MILF rebels.
MNLF o MILF?
MILF.
Okay, sige.
They were just, so ang perimeter ng munisipyo protected by the PNP and the Balikbayans, and then 1 kilometer away was the MILF. Tinitingnan ko nga sila sa vernaculars Meron akong baino, ganun, tinitingnan namin. I was still, 25, I think I was 24 or 25 years old. Bata pa ako na. Nalaman ko nga that story has some truth to it is because I saw the firearms of the Balikbayans. All the firearms of the Balikbayans were FN assault rifles, which are Belgian. And remember, si Gaddafi is supported by
Marcos.
used to be French, kung hindi ako nagkamali, French colony, no? Diba?
Hindi ko alam.
Colony, whatever.
Sige.
Pero yung firearms ng mga balikbayan were not Armalites, not hindi M14. Talagang mga FN yung Pavel G.
So, ano ibig sabihin nun? Ano yung implication nun, Ed?
The firearms were being supplied definitely by somebody from outside. And how did it come in? So there is some truth na the supply of this
From North Borneo, Chinanil.
weapons came from nahirapan man sila magpasok. So the only way it could come in is through Malaysia, North Borneo.
Backdoor channel.
Backdoor, which is our backdoor. Oo. So, bakit ba napunta tayo doon? Yung mga kwento.
Naalala mo yung mga
Tinanong mo yung Jubida Yung
Jabida.
There is a story coming out that was not true. Made up story yan. I don't know. Hindi ko alam kasi hot na story yun at the time when I was still at that age. But what I heard now is that the story of a massacre may not be true.
Ano din, kung hindi totoo yung massacre, ano talaga yun?
Kuan lang, disinformation sino ba yung nag-expose niyan sa Senate? Diba si Benigno rin?
So
Nag-privilege nag-privilege speech si Benigno Aquino diyan to expose
mm,
the Javida massacre.